So I'm Betsy Stapleton, and I am the inheritor of Rick's role at the Scott River Watershed Council, and I thank him very much for his efforts in the past.
And the mess I left you.
He congratulated me.
Shauna picked up a lot of that.
Yeah. And we have Annie Hilton, Peter Famer, and Sharna Gilmore, and they'll each introduce a little more about themselves. I'm the chair of the board of the Watershed Council. And I don't know if all of you know, but Scott Valley was called Beaver Valley in the past, and it had a great loss of beavers, as happened all over California and actually all over the world. And we happened to fall into the sweet spot around restoration that we just kind of lurched into, which is the rebuilding of the positive effects of beavers while mitigating and managing their negative impacts. And Sharna and I started hearing about beavers, maybe even now 5 years ago, I would say, and hearing about all the great things they can do with water storage and fish populations and all this. But we also realized that there's a lot of historical concerns about beavers plugging culverts, chewing down trees, which were on one hand mandated to maintain riparian vegetation coverage, and yet we're thinking, well, beaver might be a good thing, so where does this sit? And a lot of the rancher communities have had long-term problems with beavers plugging their culverts and causing problems, and we were hearing that the beaver population was rebounding. Was that a good thing, a bad thing? So we took a really inquisitive, slow-going approach on the issue, and we just started talking to people. We learned about how many depredation permits had been issued, where were their problem beavers, where were they, what were they doing, and we just started learning and talking, and we took a very low-key approach. There was a lot of outside interest in beavers, and they were sort of a groovy topic, and beavers are wonderful, and we didn't want to bring in that element, and we just started talking, and we started talking to our regulatory agencies, and our first approach with beavers was to managing on-the-ground beaver problems. Where were they chewing down good trees? Where were they plugging culverts? And dealing with the problems that landowners were experiencing rather than come in with, they're a really good thing and you need to deal with them. And from there, we started building a consensus that the positive impacts of beavers and their structures were worth exploring and learning about. And so we moved into several phases, and Sharna will talk about our beaver management phases, and then Peter will talk about our construction of beaver dam analogs, which we're choosing to call post-assisted woody structures, which recreate beaver-like structures that may or may not be colonized by beavers, but provide the same beneficial impacts. And then finally, Annie, our new watershed coordinator, will talk a little bit about our organization and the board, because board and citizen involvement has been vitally important for moving these projects forward. So we'll turn to Sharna.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like the lights, by the way?
Sure. But I would like to start, when I first was asked to come on to the Watershed Council, I didn't really understand the importance, and I didn't really understand who the players were or how it worked, or was it worth my time? And so one of the I'm like, who should I call? And I called my friend Rick Costalis, and he met me and really just gave me a very long history of what had happened in the Scott River, what had happened in Siskiyou County. He's passionate, he's knowledgeable, and he really, really expressed the importance. And if it wasn't for Rick, I definitely would not have been spending my time over the last years trying to maintain some level of watershed involvement. And so thank you, Rick, because it was a pivotal.
I mixed something up.
So we, the Watershed Council in the past, we've not really been a project-oriented group. We've really been, we meet once a month, we submit letters. We were responsible for going to the county and getting the Scott River Watershed, or the Scott River, Scott Valley Groundwater Committee going, which is proven to be a good tool for us. But we've not really been a project-oriented group. And like Betsy said, the beavers has been a topic for our internal group for many years now, looking at, what are the impacts of them, both negatively and positively. And it just continued over the years that even though there are definite nuisances that they provide, and they will continue to do whenever we're living this close to them, the beneficial factors with all the regulatory things that we were pressured on, that they could help mitigate some of those problems without having big expense, a lot of permitting issues, that what they were doing naturally was really kind of cool, and we could maybe skirt through some of this stuff that we're the TMDLs and all that other stuff that we're trying to solve. So we started to look at some of the problems, and we started with the problems. I mean, it was like, okay, they're cute, and yes, Beaver Valley, and there's a lot of like groovy topics about them, but we were really looking at, okay, we're in an agricultural community, and we definitely don't want to get this topic out in front of our community. We're ranching primarily, and we didn't want the beaver to be the next spotted owl having bumper stickers, wipe your ass with a beaver or something like that. So we really wanted to say, okay, what is the problems? And there's problems. Oh, I'm going to go back to that one, sorry. Nope, I'm going to just stay right where I was at. Sorry, Peter, I kind of jumped into yours. So the immediate issues that we were hearing about were the plugging of the diversions, the tree cutting, and pond flooding and the flooding. So we've for the last couple of years, we've got a volunteer group along with some Mark Cookson from Fish and Wildlife. Jennifer's been with us. Fish and Game. We are wrapping trees. We are putting in diversion. They're called beaver deceivers. Where at the point of diversion, we've got just a very simple construction project out of like the hog panels that really work, and the landowner does not have to get degradation permits. This year we've had a pond leveler device in one of the big ponds up Sugar Creek. We've recently went in there and did some modifications on that, but those are the things that we feel are the most immediate impacts on landowners, and we're trying to, and will continue to try to find ways that we can get the beneficial factors of beavers and mitigate some of their nuisance behaviors. And acknowledging that depredation is not a tool that we will remove from our tool belt. We think that's an important one, but if we can try to provide assistance to the landowners in other ways, that maybe that may not be our first choice, but maybe an ultimate choice. So I'm going to pass it on to the next one, which is beaver, our analog projects.
All right, so I was hired this spring to help manage and coordinate the construction of 6 of these PAWS structures, the post-assisted woody structures, and they are basically constructed with a hydraulic post pounder that's just a standard 3-point connection that fits on most pieces of farm tractors. We set this one up on a bulldozer. It seemed like a more stable, sort of rigid platform. And then we use 4 to 6 inch diameter fir posts and pound them every 18 inches across the channel. You can see a line of these posts here. In Sugar Creek, the first place we constructed these, we put them 4 feet deep into the channel, and that's a smaller tributary in Scott River. And then we constructed 4 more of these structures in the main stem of Scott River, and we pounded those 6 feet down into the ground, thinking that they're going to be handling more water, there's going to be more scouring, and going deeper would make them more stable. And this is a very experimental project. Our lead science director, brain person is Dr. Pollock, who works with the NOAA Fisheries outfit, and he's constructed a lot of these in Washington and Eastern Oregon, and they've had a lot of successes. And one of the biggest things that these structures will do is they can turn systems where you have a perennial stream, where you have flow in the spring and then it dries out in the summer. And you can turn a system like that into a system that has water year-round by retaining water. Some of that water gets stored into the ground and slowly makes its way downstream instead of all the water in the spring just flushing out downstream. So that's one of the bigger benefits that we're looking for. But sorry, I'm getting a little carried away. Construction. We put in the posts, and then we hand weave willows in between the posts, basically like basket weaving. And then we pile up rock and wood and gravel at the base of them to create a berm. Here's main stem Scott River. You can see the guy operating the post pounder, guy in the tractor, all of our posts laid out. Here's a crew delivering the willows to be woven. And then this picture is kind of small, but there's our first constructed pause is down here. And that picture was taken probably just a couple weeks ago after a big rain event, and we've created quite a pool there. But so the construction materials are really simple. Fir post, willows, it's all locally harvested. A lot of the posts we got from landowners that participated in fuel reduction programs. And the biggest part of the actual construction is just selecting an appropriate site. And that was done primarily by Michael Pollock. I toured around with him to learn that process, but a lot of it is just getting on GIS, looking at elevations, looking at old stream channels. You know, if we raise the water level a foot or 2 feet, what area is going to be inundated? How much habitat are we going to gain? Is there a history of beavers being in the area? Are there any structures out there? Is there, we basically just do a lot of wandering around, imagining what it's going to look like underwater, trying to imagine what it's going to look like in a low flow event, a high flow event. So there's some creative imagination that goes along with it, but a lot of scientific analysis through GIS also. And the main goal of this season is just to demonstrate this proof of concept because these have not been constructed in California before. And so we're doing a lot of monitoring, and we'll be monitoring a lot of water quality parameters like temperature and dissolved oxygen to evaluate what's the quality of fish habitat. And then we've already installed 32 groundwater monitoring wells and networks around these structures to evaluate how much, what the influence in the groundwater system is associated with the raise in stream or in surface water that we're retaining. And then we'll also be doing a lot of fish monitoring, and that will be done with just snorkel dives and direct observations, but we'll be doing a lot of pit tagging to evaluate, can the juveniles get through these structures, and can adult salmon get through these structures? Because those are some of the concerns also that, having a 3-foot tall wall, is that going to be a barrier for adult salmon? But right now, the Scott River is still not connected. The Chinook are downstream. We're all praying for rain, waiting for them to come through. But one of my jobs will be, coordinating with the adult salmon spawning crew and making sure that these structures can be passable by fish, either by, if we have to get in and cut out some of the willow and create a channel for the fish to swim up, or dig under the structure and have a channel for the swim up. I mean, we're going to do whatever we can to make sure these are fish friendly. But it's something we're all very excited about. And
on the fish passage, a future project that we're currently working on right now, again, with some of these area of focus on the nuisance part, but it's, it is a concern of some, particularly, some of the agency that these dams and natural beaver dams are creating fish passage problems. We're working with the gentleman on the East Coast to come over, and we're going to be working with Fish and Game and putting in a fish passage, pond leveler, adult fish passage, and that should hopefully happen in the spring of 2015. And that's another proof of concept that we're trying to develop so that we can help mitigate some of those concerns.
And this is our trial run as a talking group. So our coordination with slides and conversation isn't quite on target yet. But these are some of the tree caging with another of our board members, Michael Stapleton back there, the deceivers, and then the pond levelers, which if there's a beneficial pond, you could control the height of the pond so that the water doesn't inundate beyond defined parameters, so you can manage the level. And what I wanted to say about the sweet spot that we found is that this is an area of intense interest from regulatory agencies in terms of the potential for sediment control, fish production, groundwater improvement. It is the first time we're doing this in California, so it's a proof of concept, even though it's been done elsewhere. Our stream flows and sediment loads are different than somewhere else. And so we're really proud that Scott Valley is really being at the forefront of bringing this to California and proving that it's a beneficial concept. So.
I just wanted to quickly introduce our board. Betsy Stapleton, our chair, she introduced herself, and then of course Sharna. Larry Alexander is also a board member, and he's been in the natural resource world for a really long time. He runs and operates resource management and resource management in CRC, and he provides a lot of valuable information and networking. Mike Bryan has been on the Scott River Watershed Council board since 1992. He's a rancher and an unbelievable resource just with his networking and relationships throughout our community. Michael Stapleton, he and his wife Betsy are ranchers of French Creek and have an unbelievable sweet stretch of the French Creek and with beavers, and it's a coho paradise. Craig Thompson, he is also a rancher. He and his wife, they're a younger couple, and they're pretty innovative with their ranching. You know, they have the chicken carts out in the field, and they're just kind of on the front end of organic ranching. And he also is a volunteer at the ambulance, our local ambulance, and he's kind of some valuable business energy. Steve, he is our only outside of the area voice. He lives up in Oregon, but he works for TimberVest. And so he brings us some great knowledgeable information from different watersheds and what they're doing up in Oregon. Annie Hilton, I'm the new coordinator, and Peter Famer, he's been coordinating this project, and we are just now hiring a bookkeeper services. So that's kind of our team, but we have a lot of energy right now, and this project has been fantastic because we have had a lot of landowners, sending us text messages or stopping us in the grocery store like, gosh, during this drought, did you see so-and-so's property? He has an old beaver dam, and he's the only one with water on the river. And we're just generating a lot of organic enthusiasm, and so it's really exciting because it's helping to propel us forward and carry that momentum throughout the rest of our restoration work. So,
Thank you.